Hey, everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And today we have another amazing guest. But before I get there again, I want to remind everybody to go to my website to check out all the things I have going on. Number one, all these amazing podcasts. As always, I would appreciate a ratings and review to help elevate the show, the popularity on iTunes. It goes a long way, trust me. We're approaching 100,000 downloads now. So obviously all these different people that I bring on are bringing a lot of inspiration to the world, which I am eternally grateful for. Also, I'm less than 6 months away now from going over to Nepal, taking on my final mountain, Mount Everest. It's a big one. And you'll be able to follow me up and down the mountain as I go with a Garmin. We'll implement that a little bit later. You can find that again, www.markpattisonnfl.com. And along with that, my philanthropic work, I've got Amelia's Everest, which is my daughter. And this challenge is called the Lhotse Challenge. And we've hooked up with Higher Ground, an amazing organization here in Sun Valley, Idaho, also located in Los Angeles and New York, that helps a lot of former military vets overcome a lot of cognitive issues and amputation and things like that to get their life going in the forward direction. My daughter was never in the military, but she has epilepsy. So we've had to deal with that, and that's what we're trying to overcome for her. Okay, so along the lines of a former military past, today we have a total rock star. I'm jacked up to have this guy on. Travis Mills, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. You got a pretty incredible story from what I've just heard in the intro alone, with everything that you've been through and you've accomplished and you're willing to keep going for. So I think it's going to be a phenomenal episode, probably the best one ever that you've ever done. And not because of me, because you're jacked up, and that's why it's going to be the best.
You know, I am jacked up, and it's interesting because you do a podcast as well, and we'll get into kind of the whole story. And I've done now, this is probably, I think, 175, and I've probably recorded 200. And it is a grind, and it's a grind because you have to find people, and then you have to schedule them, and are they going to show or they're not going to show, and you have to research and do all that stuff. And I can tell you with certainty that every single time I get on, I talk to people like you, I'm just like inspired because it puts my little world in perspective of what's important. And, you know, when I start thinking about things aren't going so right for me, then all of a sudden I get somebody like you on the pod, and I start, you know, like, well, maybe my situation isn't so great, but at least I don't have this or that. And I've talked to guys that have no arms, no legs, have been burned, have gone through suicidal thoughts. I mean, you know, the whole range of things. And so, you know, that the theme is very common, and it seems like this has become your motto, which is never give up, never quit. And I want to start, I think, there with you. Like, where did that thing, we're going to get into your injury here in a few minutes, but did you have that growing up? Did you have that positive, the glasses half full, you know, I'm not giving up, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep going no matter what, from a little kid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure my parents called it stubbornness. So, like, they got me in trouble a lot. But I've always been the same way that I am today, going forward in life after everything that happened to me. People, the best compliment I get and the most organic one they give me is, wow, Travis, you're the same, you know, person. I didn't think you were going to come out of it the same. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm everyday regular as I used to be. So, yeah, I was always on sports teams. So there's always that camaraderie, and, you know, you have to go the extra mile and do the extra rep and go the extra hour and the workouts and things like that just to achieve the goal. And the way that my model came around, I was actually doing recovery at the hospital, and the nurse asked me the occupational therapist asked me if I want to take a break. And I told her, I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to quit. Like, and she's like, that's a silly question. I said, yes, it was. And I kept doing crunches, actually. So that just kind of stuck from there. But I think I've always been extremely, extremely stubborn.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that can work both ways for you. It can really propel you through tough times. And on the other side of that, sometimes you have to, you know, certain things, not all things, but certain things, you have to also know when to call it and then move on and go to something else. But as we evolve into kind of this history with you, and I want to go pre your accident, and we'll get into that. You right now you're in Maine. I'm in Sun Valley, Idaho. So we're more or less on the opposite sides of the country. and you went into the Army. So tell me, what was the drive? Maybe there was a mentor. I've talked to other guys who are in the military, and there was somebody, maybe it's a family member who said, "Hey, this is where you got to go. This is the path." I mean, what was that for you?
I went to college. Like I was telling you, I had to go to college. I played a small community college football team.
Cool.
And I realized I didn't like school. It wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. My dad was in the Army. My grandpa was in the Navy. A lot of my family members were in the service. And I thought, let's take a look at this. And then I got talking more and more, and I got really excited about the idea of the Army and the airborne infantry and the signing bonus and all that. And I had bills to pay, but I also had to try something different. I didn't want to live at home. No offense to my parents. I love them very much, but I wanted to get out and do my own thing.
Sure.
And I hated being in debt from all this, the school debt. And I just didn't see the point in doing that. So I talked to the recruiter. And after I talked to the Air Force, the infantry, or the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, I settled on the Army and went to basic training after I went to college for a semester and a half.
So when you're talking about airborne, what does that mean? I mean, when I think of airborne, you're literally airborne, you're jumping out of planes. And what's the whole objective when you sign up for that duty?
Like you said, you jump on airplanes.
But you're jumping out, you're floating to the ground, and you're in a war combat situation. I mean, what is the tactics behind, you got guys coming into the ground and the air and this and that.
Yeah. So airborne was, started in World War II, and it was basically, you can be anywhere in the world in 18 hours. We're supposed to be able to be anywhere in the world. And then you're supposed to be able to be ready to jump into combat, so that you can get behind enemy lines or do whatever and jump in and hit the ground running. And they call you light infantry because you're not in tanks, you're not in vehicles. You jump in with your rucksack and your weapon, and then you just go to the battle, onto the mission. But, there hasn't been that many combat jumps for these wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, and the ones that were, they weren't really like you find Operation Market Garden and Normandy and all those times they jumped overseas in World War II.
Yeah. So now I got it. So now we're in 2012, right? And you're stationed in Afghanistan, and set up what was going on the day that your accident happened and you stepped on an IED.
Yeah. So we had a pretty normal day. It was nothing crazy or spectacular. You woke up, you brushed teeth, you had breakfast. I don't think we were supposed to even go on patrol that day, but we had a phone call from the village elder that he had some stuff in the city or the village outside our place he wanted us to talk with him about. So we said, okay. And we went out like every other day. We swept the ground up twice because that's what our protocol was. And it just so happened that we missed an IED, and I put my backpack down on an IED. It was about a 120-pound backpack, and it set off the bomb. And when it went off, it took my right arm, right leg off automatically. They actually never found those pieces of me. And then my left side of my body, my left arm and my left leg were still kind of there. And I don't know, I got thrown to the ground and rolled over and saw the aftermath of what happened. My medic and my platoon sergeant started working on me, and I told them, don't worry about it. You're not going to save me. And they went ahead and worked on me. And then I didn't know what to do with myself. So I radioed my LT with my left hand that was still kind of there. And I called him and told him I need medics over here. I got guys injured, and Doc's voice came over, worked on Ryan and Brandon. I'm messing the names up for some reason, but worked on them. And then he got, working on me with the other medic, Dan Bateson, and they got me on a helicopter and eventually to surgery where 400 units of blood given to me, which is the most ever given. I became a triple amputee that day on April 12th of 2012. April 10th of 2012. And then I had 9 doctors and 7 nurses work on me for 14 hours to keep me alive, which is very impressive when they could have loosened just one tourniquet. And if they would have done the one tourniquet, I'd have been done, within 2 minutes.
So what's going through your mind? I mean, it's just, the reason why I'm asking this is just, I can't even imagine what's going through somebody's mind when you're laying there and, you have 2 of your limbs off and you're injured severely and or you think you're going to die, or you're thinking that this is it, or what's life going to be like? I mean, do you remember any of that? Or was the impact so crazy that it's just kind of a blur at this point?
No, actually, I watched a lot of more movies, and I still do to this day. I love them. And the only thing I saw in my head was the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
when the medic gets shot in the stomach and he cries out for his mom and he begs not to die. And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to die. He starts yelling for his mom, and I'm like, my guys will never see that. I always exuded confidence. I led from the front and never showed fear. So when I got blown up, I was just like, well, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. And I realized nothing I was going to do right in that moment was going to change the outcome of what was going to happen. So instead of freaking out or crying and begging for my life, I just kept myself calm. I was telling some jokes to the medics. On the helicopter ride to Kandahar, one of my guys that got injured was yelling out in a lot of pain. And I, took my arm out of like the strap that I was in, and I yelled at the medic to take his helmet off. And the third time that he didn't hear me, I took my arm out and I, made a motion over my head. And I told him to take his helmet off. And of course I said other words than that because I was getting madder and madder he didn't. And then I told him to give my guys water and tell them they're going to be okay. So I don't know. I guess I just kind of summed it up in my head like, well, you're not going to live through this and it's okay because whatever happens, happens. So just to make sure that their last memories of you, like my guys over in Afghanistan's last memory was not of me crying for my life and begging and hoping that I was, somewhere else and showing any fear. And some people think I'm crazy, and maybe I am. I don't know. But that's how I handled it that day.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly brave. And I think we all handle situations differently. Some are very calm about high-speed things going by us at a rapid, and then other people freak out and just get caught up in the terror of the moment. Ironically, a couple nights ago, I think it was Patriot Day here in the States, and so they had the movie Sniper on. And one of the things, I'll ask you kind of the same question. One of the things that I can't remember the main character's name was, but one of the things that he was really dealing with in the aftermath was just all the trauma of all the craziness of what he had to witness or see or experience himself that, the average guy like me have not had to go through. I'd mentioned before that I'm a part of this organization called Higher Ground. They've got a huge emphasis on helping former military heroes like yourself on all kinds of different issues. So the question is kind of like the movie, have you had any kind of flashbacks or were you able to kind of move past that? Like, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're sweating because you're reliving that moment.
Yeah. No, the only reason I wake up in the middle of the night sweating is because I had the meat sweats from smoking meat and I ate too much. I don't suffer from PTSD. People always wonder if I'm lying or how can that be?
Yeah.
I've shot people. I've killed people. I've blown people up with grenades. I've watched buddies die. And I couldn't tell you why it hasn't affected me. It doesn't bother me. And I think like the more crude sense of humor is, the first thing you feel when you shoot somebody is the recoil of your rifle. And that's just kind of how it is. Like I was there to do a job. I did my job and just kind of, I can separate the two. I can separate Afghanistan and my home life. I have a wife and 2 kids and, life goes on. But as far as any like nightmares or flashbacks or feeling bad about what I did, I don't have any of that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's just your DNA, the way you're wired. So when you went over to Afghanistan, were you married at the time?
Yeah. Well, I went over the first time when I met her through MySpace because her brother was my medic.
Yep.
And then the second time that I went, I was married to her. So I went for a year that time. And the third time I went, I was supposed to be 9-month deployment. We just had a baby, our daughter, Chloe. And yeah, we were still married then too.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's phenomenal. And I can only imagine, so now all this happens and ultimately you end up back in the States, right? And now you've got this long recovery. Are you still in therapy in terms of physical therapy of people helping you out, or where do you sit in that whole spectrum?
Like right now?
Yeah.
Like today?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I had 19 months of recovery at Walter Reed, and then they discharged me, and I went to a workout with a personal trainer for a little bit. I need to get back in the gym if that helps, this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
But no, I live a pretty normal life. I own 4 businesses, either solely or partnerships. And then I also run a big nonprofit up here in Maine. So life goes on, right? What are you going to do?
Well, no, I mean, look, you've got a phenomenal attitude, and I've seen you speak on video, and it's just all about redemption and not looking back, and whatever happens to you, you got to deal with and move forward. And you've done that. You started this foundation called the Travis Mills Foundation. I'm just going to read what I wrote down, which is on your website, and you can elaborate more into it. Supports recalibrated veterans and their families through long-term programs that help heroic men and women overcome physical obstacles. So what was the whole intent? Like how did you even dream up of this idea? Is it obviously it's because of the things that you went through?
Yeah. I mean, at Walter Reed, I was able to go on a lot of trips where I learned how to kayak in the canoe, and I learned how to downhill mountain bike, believe it or not. So like I strap into a 4-wheel bike and I ripped down a 9,000 foot mountain. And when I was there, I realized I was really fortunate because a lot of the people that were going, a lot of the service members that were injured didn't need a non-medical assistant. You know, like I needed my wife, right? Like I still can't button my pants by myself or whatever. Usually I just slide them over my hips now. I'm just buying one size bigger and hope they don't fall down during the day. But, and I thought, well, geez, the only reason I want to get better is for my wife and my daughter. So I might as well, you know, figure out how to help people. And at Walter Reed, there's so many people doing just awesome things. You want to start, you know, giving back some way, some shape, some form. And we started the Travis Mills Foundation, and we were doing care packages. And then we decided to bring families out to Maine that have been through a physical injury, paralyzation, amputation, spinal cord injury, something along those lines due to service, not necessarily combat, but service related. And, you know, we started on an idea, and then we started having people understand who we were and what we were trying to do. And then they started donating, and we bought an old estate that Elizabeth Arden built back in 1929. She was a cosmetic pioneer, and we rehabbed it for like 2 years for $2.5 million. And we opened at 17 and brought in families. So we bring 8 families per week, no cost to the family. And we show them how to do things adaptively, but as a whole family unit. And in 17, we brought 89 families. In 18, we brought 135 families. And last year we brought over 200. And this year, you know, we were on pace for over 300, but obviously COVID slowed us down. And, you know, I'm so proud and honored to be the president of the foundation. I get like a lot of the glory of it, if you will, because of my face being on the, you know, the marketing material, but it's really everybody together. I have over 1,000 people signed up to be volunteers. We have 12 full-time staff. It pluses up in the summertime. We have more families coming out. And then, you know, I think people really take the heart that I don't take a dime. None of my board gets paid anything to be a part of this. So it's just awesome that everybody comes together and we get to do a lot of cool stuff, things together. We also expanded it now to not just do families and caregivers, but we also have a post-traumatic growth program. We partner with a nonprofit called Boulder Crest, and they have a Warrior Path program. It's an 18-month online, mostly course, with the first week being an intensive setting at a rehab setting. And it's like training you how to not only, you know, understand you might have post-traumatic stress, but how to grow from it. So they call it post-traumatic growth. Phenomenal program. We're really excited to be partnered with. They're one of the top in the nation. And, you know, it's very secretive. I don't even know what goes on because they said if I want to know, I got to go through the course. And I just don't personally have the ability to take that much time to go through the course right now. I don't have a week where I can spare, as dumb as that might sound.
Well, you're a busy guy, and, you know, being busy is good, right? And going back to your foundation, you know, it seems like there's a lot of crossover with Higher Ground. Are you familiar with that organization?
Not particularly when you say it out loud, but
yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm not. I'm always willing to learn more. We've grown to, I guess, one of the top 25 VSOs in the nation. So I don't know how we're doing so well, but, you know, everybody giving back, doing the good thing. So I'm excited about the future, and I'm not sure what Higher Ground does, but unless they take people hiking. Well, my brother-in-law went on this expedition kind of thing.
Yeah, so you had mentioned before about downhill skiing and adaptive sports, mountain biking, hiking, paddle, you know, canoeing, out in the river, fly fishing. Sun Valley is a key spot because we were a ski town in the middle of nowhere, middle of Idaho, and you have all those things right at our fingertips, right? And so it would be interesting, you know, for you to take a look at that website. I'll send it to you, and if you think there's some kind of, you know, collaboration. I have nothing to do with them other than partnering with them on trying to raise this money for, it's not for my daughter, but for people who have issues like my daughter, Amelia's Everest Lotsie Challenge. And so we'll come together to help try to raise the amount of money that we're trying to raise actually is the height of Lhotse. Lhotse is the fourth highest mountain in the world. It sits right next to Mount Everest, $27,940. And so we're a couple $1,000s into it. And we have our first campaign coming up on the 22nd of October. So hoping before I leave by the 31st of March of 2021, we can raise, the total and help all kinds of different people. They're trying to overcome. So it seems like there's some overlap in there somewhere, and it'd be interesting. Maybe you two people could chat. So let's talk about your public speaking. You also mentioned that you own 4 other business, either as an individual or in partnerships. It sounds like your foundation is, on top of that, which is amazing. All the people that you're helping is so inspirational. And, when people, they don't all have your attitude, and when they go in, they need that lift. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of things to help provide that lift to them. In terms of your public speaking, I know things have been slowed down with COVID and they're not having big, gatherings, right now. But, that will all turn around and but when you go in, typically, your message, I would assume, is you walk out there and you've got some prosthetics. And it seemed to me on these videos, kind of the first thing you want to do is kind of break the ice in the room. So people don't freak out, or because you're not freaked out, right? You're just like, treat me like everybody else.
Yeah, I go out there. I open up with jokes right away and let people know it's going to be a lot different. I just got back from an event in Green Bay, actually, yesterday night.
Yeah.
I went up to Greater Green Bay, which is really cool. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Green Bay. You ever played in Green Bay?
Oh, yeah. It's the only city. Like, you go in there and, population 30,000 or whatever, and there's all these mom and pop homes, and all of a sudden there's a gigantic stadium right in the neighborhood, right? And you're like, what?
Yeah. It felt like I was going to a high school, but it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I'm a Lions fan. I'm from Michigan, so I'm a Lions fan. But you got to have a backup team. So I got Green Bay and the Patriots now. But no, I went there and I told everybody, I said, guys, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's gonna be a lot different than you probably expected or were anticipating. And I went to dinner with this guy, the host Mickey, that brought us her husband Tim. And I had the whole restaurant the night before sing happy birthday to him. His birthday's in February. But I yelled to the whole restaurant to sing to him, and they did. And then last night, or 2 nights ago, whatever it was, I said, guys, I've missed 44 of my good friend Tim's birthday. And I said, I'm only 33, so I'm not even sure how I missed those last ones. Or the first ones. I said, but can you guys help me sing to him? So I had everybody in the whole entire, 200-300 people, because they broke the event up in 2 different sessions. But, I had them all singing happy birthday to Tim. And, I think people have this misconception. And it's not a bad misconception, but they already have their mind made up. I'm going to come out there and tell a sob story. They're going to cry, and they're going to feel sorry, and it's going to be pity. And I go out there and I tell jokes, and I let them know, look, what happened to me was just a bad day at work. I don't dwell on the past. I reminisce it. That's one of the life lessons I tell people, because I could be lost in my ideas and my own thoughts forever, wondering why this happened, how I could have did something different. And the truth is, I just reminisce having arms and legs, and now I've had 8 years without that have been really incredible. And then, I finish up with that, and I tell them that you can't always control your situation, but you can always control your attitude. So you got to be on top of your attitude and make sure that you can keep pushing forward no matter what happens. And it's fun. It's an emotional roller coaster. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I write a new speech every time. I add jokes here, take jokes away there, but the story is going to stay the same. So I have fun with it. And that's why I truly love to do it. I don't necessarily have to do it, right? I have a pension from the military for retirement and things like that. This is just something I want to do, and I truly enjoy. So you can't beat that, right?
No, you can't. And it's really interesting because it's easy to say, and for some people it's really hard to do. And that's just understand that it's your attitude at the end of the day. It's just like what is this to be? I mean, I can remember I wasn't very often, but every once in a while, if we're down a couple touchdowns with a minute to go, I thought we were going to win the game because we were trained. Not only with my background, with the way I grew up, but also through our coaches, right? That's just like, never give up. There's always a way, there's always a chance. And so until you're out and, DOA, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, you always have a chance to get back in the game. Always. And I think that's your whole message about never give up and never quit and moving forward. And I think like everybody, I'm doing, and I've been able to experience some cool things just like you. But I have my days that are up and down. I'm not very low and I don't get that high, but I still need a little motivation. And it helps me when I listen to guys like you or go to a podcast and somebody's got something and I'm like, you know what, maybe my thing ain't so bad. And this, like just chill out and have like recalibrate what I'm thinking about, because it's really not that awful, and turn around. And normally it does. And then also I think, for me at least, being out in nature and, walking up every day and hugging a tree and just trying to be at peace. And I don't have all this craziness. You're out in Maine. I know Maine isn't a crazy state with it's not like a LA and New York or anything. And so, it's just really somehow or another, whatever that person's way is trying to slow the music down just a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And, I didn't do the whole mental health thing probably the right way. And I'm the first to admit it. The first time they came in, I was sleeping at the hospital and they left. The second time they came in, my wife said, mental health's here. And I said, I thought I told you not to, or tell them not to come back. And they came in the room and I pretended like I was sleeping until they went away. And the third time they came back, I was eating a bowl of cereal, looked over, and I saw it was a lady that was there before. And I went, oh, crap. I said other words, but whatever. I fell back in my bed and pretended like I was sleeping. And she came up and talked to me. She's like, what are you doing? And I mean, she watched me literally take a bite of cereal, look at her, say a few words, and fall back into my bed like I was sleeping. And I gave her my name, rank, and my social. And she's like, I don't know what that is. What are you doing? And I gave it to her again. She goes, I don't understand. So that's what you tell the enemy. To take you and leave or just leave. I ain't talking to you. You ain't taking my guns. And, it was like this it was a false narrative for sure, but it was like, I thought they were kind of the enemy trying to get me to say I was crazy or, whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to mental health. And then they gave me a social worker. I had to go see, everybody has to do it, right? It's not just because it was me. Yeah. And the lady was very nice, from Wisconsin, Green Bay fan. And I'd talk football with her. And then she'd ask me a personal question. And I'd say, Christy, it's just not going to happen for us. I said, this isn't a beautiful mind. You're not going to break me down after so many sessions. I said, I'll tell you how my wife and my kids are doing, or at the time, my daughter. I said, we can talk football. I'll talk about your family. I said, but anything to do with what I'm going through mentally or internally, you will honestly never, ever know. And again, I don't know that I would change how I handled it for me personally, but I know it's definitely not the preferred treatment or method. So there's definitely always room to improve. And I have to, accept that I did things a little bit backwards or the wrong way. But now my therapy is going up on stage and talking to everybody about how I'm recalibrated. I'm not a wounded warrior. I'm just recalibrated, because at the end of the day, I don't want people to have pity in their eyes. They can feel bad for me losing my arms and legs, sure, but don't think that my life is over or any less, rich or important than it used to be. And there's a lot of fulfillment in my life. The businesses that I'm part of is I own a marina and a lodge. So down the road from my house, I was there earlier today, 180 boat slips, 38 rooms and cabins and cottages, and 10 rental boats. Put a cafe in this year, doing very well. Had the steak bomb for lunch. You should try it. Yeah. And I own a couple a rental business, for a big barn, some house stuff, and then an insurance company and my speaking company, and then I had the foundation.
Yeah, good for you. So I was going to just ask you, what do the next 10 years look like? But what it looks like to me is that you're just going to continue to let these things mature.
Well, I tell you what, I think I'm going to buy one more building that between my barn building and my property, and do a small tasting room. Mm-hmm. And I also was thinking about doing just a huge wedding style, really nice tent. Yeah. And putting in a beer garden where it's just all the beer you could want, and then having food trucks come and sit there for the day and pay me revenue. You know what? I got plans. Love that. But I also, the foundation is going to keep growing. We might try to expand to have 2 or 3 other facilities throughout the U.S. and give back as much as we can to more families and things like that. And as corny as it sounds, just be a good dad and a husband, right? Take care of my kids. My son's 3, my daughter's 9. And my son's name's Dax, so D-A-X, because the medics were Daniel and Alexander. Yeah. And without them saving me, I wouldn't be able to, have kids. So I have the ability to have kids. There's my oldest 9-year-old right there, my daughter Chloe.
Hello, Chloe.
Just getting back.
Yeah.
She just did the ropes course at the foundation, crushed it, no fear. And she had a good day at school today. I picked her up and took her to the foundation. So anyway, sorry. And my daughter and my son are probably going to walk in. Or my wife and my son are going to walk in here in a second too.
Yeah, no, it's all good. No, listen, man, you're doing all the right stuff. You've got a good path ahead. And, for anybody that's listening, it's just look, man, get off the couch, go do something positive. It doesn't have to do all the things that you're doing, of course, because everybody's got their own individual things going on, but make a difference, get involved in the organization, get out there, take a step forward, get your exercise, get involved in your community, do what you got to do to make this place a better place to live in, especially in these crazy times.
Yeah, and that's what we push at the foundation is we want people to be active members in society as well as their families. Instead of living life sitting on the sidelines and watching, get out there and try it. I stole a physical therapist from Walter Reed that can adapt anybody's situation to any kind of activity. And she gets heartbroken if she can't adapt something quick enough for a family to try, like a service member that's injured to try. But we invite them back and she has a plan for the next time if we couldn't get it the first time. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the world's most awesome guy with never a bad day, because every now and then people are going to have bad days. My truck on the way home to get to this phone call, my truck engine light came on, something about low energy or low engine output or something. I don't know. I got an appointment for tomorrow to fix it, and I need to work out. My wife tells me that every day, and I need to. One day I'm going to eventually start working out again because I'm getting husky, and that's not a good look for me.
Yeah. You look like a linebacker.
No,
who I used to get hit by.
Yeah, more like a maybe defensive tackle right now. My stomach's a lot bigger than it needs to be. It's not where I need to worry, but I need to work on it. I want to be pretty again. Yeah,
well, you are in a lot of different ways, but I wanted to just tie one last thing in. You talked about getting back into life, and I remember there's a church I was in, a Catholic church. It's a very popular one down in Santa Monica, and this is probably 5 years ago. And the priest, he's a very charismatic guy, and he goes, he was talking about adversity and people being stuck and everything else. And I was kind of going through a little bit of my pity party at the time. And he essentially said, kind of like what you're saying, which reminds me of, you to get unstuck, you have to get back in the lane of life. Right. And that's what you've done. And it's so cool to hear. Where can people find you?
TravisMills.org for all your Travis Mills needs. I got a documentary that was out on Netflix for a bit. Now it's on Fox Nation. Not that it's political. And just, 2014 GI Film Festival Award winner. And I have a book called Tough as They Come, which is a New York Times bestseller. Very proud of that. And, I live in Maine, right outside of Augusta. You can find me at Hannaford at the grocery store. You can find me at Sam's Club. I don't shy away from it. And I talk to people all the time, take pictures, and you'd think with the coronavirus, people would want to stay away. But I had to run to Lowe's, a few times and stuff, and people come up, and the ones that are in the higher bracket of hey, don't be around people. They're like, oh, Travis, can I get a picture? Take your mask. Let's take our masks off. I'm like, yeah, okay. No, I don't wear a mask usually anyway. I can't get the dang things on. But they come up, they shake my hand, they give me hugs, and I'm like, I don't mind that you're hugging me, but I thought you're supposed to stay away from people at your age. So it's good.
You're infectious, man, in the positive way. So well done on that. Listen, Travis, I appreciate you coming on the pod today. You're an inspiration. Once again, I'm inspired, and just keep doing all the things you're doing and knock it out of the park. So totally appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for your time. Good luck with everything. That climb's going to be awesome. You're going to crush it. And just thankful for your time and allowing me to be part of this. Take care.
I will never give up. I will never quit. Thank you.
Boom. There it is.
Hey, and thank you so much for listening to the Find Your Summit podcast. We are so glad to have you along for this journey. And if you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, share it on iTunes, spread it to the planet. We're looking to broadcast this to every person that is out there because, as you know, everybody has their own summit that they're going after. Okay, if you're looking to follow my journey, you can find that through my social links on markpattison.nfl.com. That's Mark, M-A-R-K, Pattison, P-A-T-T-I-S-O-N, NFL.com. So, until the next podcast, just remember, clear eyes, full hearts, and remember, it takes a little more to make a champion, so make it happen. Thank you. Bye.